Dan
Oh,
Koob with the mysterious background here. I wish I knew what was behind you. Do we know
well,
what's behind you, Dan?
I wish it were more interesting. A rolling start. I like this. Behind me is my laundry room. I used to
Ah,
have I used to have a proper office, and then we decided to add another child to the home. So we were out of rooms. So I actually cleared out where Griffey, the dog, ate and slept. She now sleeps in a different room,
it's
and
good that you clarified. The dog, not
yeah,
not a not
yeah,
a
yeah,
human.
yeah. No, uh, threw her out of the room, told her to get out. And now I work next to my washer and dryer. So I get to do laundry while I'm home alone and take meetings.
I with the blurred background, I have done that when I've zoomed on the road, outside of this office. But I,
It's
I
it's
feel
more
like
for
you need
you.
it.
It's more for you because otherwise you're going to be staring at like pipes and like my laundry hanging up. So it's more for you than me.
My thing is though, maybe this is a product of watching The Sopranos with Gina a lot lately. I feel like you need a good backstory, Dan. I feel like you should tell me you're in you're in a remote location. There's dead bodies laying all over the place, and people can't know the real you.
Who's to say there aren't?
There you go. I mean,
Who's to say?
that's a way to
I live
kind of
I
hook
live in
people into the
South
show right
Jersey.
there.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm not far from the Pinelands of South Jersey. So
No spoilers. I don't know much yet. We still have 7, 8 episodes to go in the final
oh
season.
sorry. Oh sorry. You mean of Sopranos?
Yes.
Oh
Yes.
good. Yeah, no, I won't spoil anything for you. Just
Okay.
get ready
Good.
to be disappointed.
I've heard that time and time
What
again.
well
I'm
what
I'm
is
trying to keep my hopes up.
I mean this is well tread territory, but like what is the statute of limitation on spoilers for a
That's
show
the
that
thing.
was the most for the most popular show of all
I
time?
know. That's why I'm asking out of the kindness of your heart to not share a spoiler because I know I'm in the wrong. I've been dodging them like landmines, and I've stepped on a few. Before we hit record, I stepped on one. I was looking up SportsTown stuff on YouTube, and a death, the final season, just flashed across my screen. So I wasn't
Oh
happy about
no.
that.
Oh no. I had the
But
same
I do
problem.
know Vito just went down. A wholesome death for Vito, right? Very humane for Vito.
I'm
Wasn't
gonna be
humane
honest
though.
with you. I never watched it.
You never watched? Oh my
No.
god.
I mean, I'm
Okay.
aware. I'm of the age to where I was aware of it when it was going on, but I just never really watched it. I had the same thing with Game of Thrones until like 2 years ago. I finally watched Game of Thrones, but I didn't care about it when it was going on, so I missed everything. So like people would say like, "Oh, Khaleesi, can't believe that happened." I'd be like, "I don't know who that is, and I don't care." So by the time I finally like loaded it up, I was it just in a complete cone.
Here's the thing with TV shows. Like if everybody's talking about it, I know it's annoying to hear everybody else talk about a TV show, but if they're all talking about Breaking Bad and all talking about Thrones and all talking about Sopranos, there's probably a reason everybody's talking about it. You should watch it. So that's kind of been
Unless I've noticed this with a different content company who is clearly being paid to push Landman right now. I don't know if you've noticed this. Landman, of course, on Paramount Plus.
I
This
heard it's
particular
good.
pod, well, yeah, because this particular podcast network has clearly been paid off to tell everyone how amazing the show is. It, like every single podcast somehow works in something about John Hamm or about Billy
Yeah.
Bob Thornton, or apparently his daughter is a bit of we don't want to slut shame here. Apparently, she has a lot of fun around town, and every regardless of whether these podcasts are about movies or shows or sports or like Eagles football, for example, they seem to continuously work in these references to a show that nobody has
Hmm.
access to because nobody has Paramount Plus. So it just goes against your theory there. What a fun
That's a
start!
great point. I
What a fun
would
start!
say too, we should have known kind of where Aaron Rodgers' football life, careers, where everything was going back when he spoiled the red wedding for everybody. Do you remember that? I think we were both in Green Bay when that happened.
Yeah,
It was a big
yeah.
deal. He
But
said,
again,
down go the Starks.
yeah, but Red Wedding meant nothing to me. I probably thought he meant James Starks. I had no idea. I was like, James Starks get hurt at practice today? What's going on?
Well, that was a common occurrence, unfortunately, for Niagara Falls native.
Well, we
For
saw
those who
James
don't
Starks
know,
take down a lot of things. Sorry, I'm interrupting. Go ahead.
no, no, keep going. We can go as long as we want.
No, it's just, we saw James Starks do a lot of things in Green Bay, along with many other Packers.
The Green
We
Bay
can get in.
stories.
We
The
can get
Green
into it.
Bay
Sure.
stories that we could share. It's a pleasure. Man, I've been looking forward to this. Hopefully, Dan's been looking forward to it too. This is one of my best friends right here for those watching at home. Dan Koob, formerly of NBC 26 in Green Bay when I was at the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. We may have shared a pint or 12 out on the town in our heyday. Back when we could hang, the prime years of our life. That's where you want to be. Green Bay, Wisconsin,
Yeah.
when it's
Yeah.
negative 28 on a nice February night. But we
Yeah,
had fun.
those years really felt, Tyler, like we had just signed, our rookie extension. We had just secured the bag athletically, in the prime of our lives. Like 23, I won't speak
Yeah.
for you. I was, 22 to 25 for me. Just the absolute peak of our powers. And that's when we met. Actually, I appreciate you saying best friend. I mean, I have not seen you since you were in my wedding 3.5 years ago. We have not seen each other physically in the same
Talked.
space since then.
We've
Well,
talked
of
often.
course, of
Yeah.
course we talk. Yeah, we talk, and Justin Felder is lumped in there as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have not seen each other since then. So I'm excited to get some little FaceTime. But yeah, I mean,
It's a
what a
pleasure.
time. Green Bay, Wisconsin, in the height of the Aaron Rodgers, coming off the Super Bowl in 2010, the height of the McCarthy Rodgers tandem that
Mhm.
never quite got over the hump. Was a wild time. A lot of wild characters in those teams, a lot of guys behind the scenes that were just kind of like just crazy dudes. But fun, but a lot of fun.
Yeah, we'll get to Dan Koob and why you're here because you're taking over the nation, sweeping the nation, one could say.
Hopefully.
But you just got me thinking it because I've lived in Green Bay and Western New York for many years, basically my whole life. Throw Syracuse in there, and it hit me many nights out there in Green Bay when it's negative whatever degrees, and you've got to start your truck up for a half hour when you're at the bar before you even go home because who knows if your battery's going to hold up. But yesterday, I'm driving on 219 with the fam. We're coming back from my folks, Ellicottville back to Boston Colden here. Complete whiteout. Could not see anything. Just hoping you can see those two little red dots, the flashers on the car in front of you, and it just hit me, Dan. Like, how are the Packers and the Bills able to sign anybody? Like, if you're a 22, 23, 24 year old, you've got the free will to play for a team. I guess it'd be more so the second contract, so a little older than that. Like, it is a credit to the Bills. I guess Josh Allen. That's the power of Josh Allen, right? You've got the MVP of the league. Players want to flock toward that MVP for the shot at a ring, but here in New York State, you've got shitty taxes, shitty weather. I mean, you can't see a thing. That's all I kept thinking of. Like, I've lived in this and I've never gotten used to it. How is a player from down south ever going to get used to this stuff? And you saw there in Green Bay too. It's more so the bitter cold out there.
I'll never forget Eddie Lacy and I cuddling up together at the bar one night, maybe his first or second year, and we're going into the playoffs. So he's from Gretna, Louisiana, right? Like south of New
Yeah.
Orleans. And he has since come out and said a lot of these things. So I'm not sure how much of a surprise this will sound to your listeners and viewers, but um, we're standing there having a couple Bud Lights, just reporter and running back, just tossing back a few. And he's like, man, I can't wait to go home. It's so fucking cold here. This is a guy who, was running for 1,000 yards a year. He's going top five in fantasy drafts. And, he's a main cog in an offensive unit that is top five perennially. And he's like, it's so cold here. I just can't stand it. He's like, I want to win or whatever, but like when the season's over, I'm out. And
Yeah.
I don't blame him. I mean, I'm not from a warm place. I'm from a Philly, like not the warmest, not the coldest, but I distinctly remember driving home after a sportscast one night and a marquee on a bank said that the wind chill was minus 45 degrees. And I was just like, I just can't make it. I'm willing to accept I can't make it. I can't do it. I mean, you're
Yeah.
talking about starting your car 20 minutes early. I would start the car at 10 o'clock when 10 o'clock news starts. I would do sports at 10:20, film morning sports until 10:45. And there were days where like my car door was still stuck to itself.
Oh my God.
And you're like, okay, go inside, get a pot of coffee that no one's drinking anymore. It's hot. Pour it on your car handle to try to like get, I mean, I remember like scraping the inside of my windshield, not the outside, the inside,
The inside.
Like it's just a different breed out there. And like kudos to them. Like I love Wisconsin. I loved our time in Green
Oh,
Bay.
it
But
definitely
man, it's a different
creates
breed.
the ethos is different there in Green Bay, here in Buffalo, and it kind of segues into your search, your mission. One man's mission to find the greatest sports town in America. I got to tell everybody when Dan Koob here told me about this show. I think when you first told me it was an idea, right? You're figuring out what to do with your life. What's your passion? You know, you're too good in media, too good in TV to stray from the business. My opinion. And there's been, I mean, out there in Green Bay, some of the best friends I've had in TV. Mike Fink comes to mind. Like before you got out there to Wisconsin, unbelievable on TV, and he left the business. Is kicking ass in sales. Power to him, supporting his family. That's awesome. Miss Mike like crazy. But it's like, man, like you guys are too good. I want to see you stay in media if that's where your heart is. And then you told me this idea for a show that you had, and I was speechless. I mean, you were put on earth to be the host of a show committed to finding the best sports town in America. So I just want to give you the floor, Dan, because I don't want to put words in your mouth. Like, when did you first think of this idea for a show, and how did it become just this labor of love, really?
Yeah, well, great intro. That was a Kelsey level intro. I really appreciate the hype up. Yeah, SportsTown is the search for America's best sports city. This is a travel leisure show that we have finally created. And I'm not the only one. It's not one man search. There's a group of us who went to Temple University together from 2007 to 2011 who did Temple Update together, like our local news version of that, right? And it's a mixture of myself and a producer and a photographer who own their own production company. And for years and years and years, we've had this idea to go on this journey to find the best sports town in America. And a lot of that comes from covering collegiate sports at Temple. A lot of those guys, Rob, Patrick, and Rudy are their names. They spent a lot of time traveling with the team and, quite frankly, some boring towns. Temple was in the MAC when we were at Temple, and they spent a lot of time in Ohio. For anyone who's into college sports, Ohio kind of like has the MAC circled. And they were driving home one time from a game, and they were thinking, it'd be great to do more than like see the inside of a Marriott in all these like shitty Ohio towns. So, like, what if there was a show dedicated to not only the sports aspect and the culture aspect, but like, where do you go in these towns? Where do you stay? Where do you eat? How do you fill your day if you were to ever decide to go to a place like Louisville, Kentucky, or Lexington, Kentucky, or Columbus, Ohio? And that's kind of where the seed of Sportstown was born. Now, those guys in 2012 went down, filmed an episode in Tuscaloosa that just unfortunately never really went anywhere. Like the media space was very different at the time. You basically had RSNs, right, regional sports networks to pitch this thing to, or you're time buying something on, like a vast network on channel 757 on DirecTV, right? So it's just very limited opportunity. And as time progressed in a lot of these spaces on YouTube and Instagram and a lot of these brand partnerships kind of come to light, there are so many more places for distribution. And I've always been interested in this topic, I mean, for about 10 years. And then when I got out of TV, I was working at CBS Philly, covering the Eagles, Phillies, Sixers, and Flyers, etc. I got married, had a kid, and I was like, I just don't want to do the nights and weekends thing for the rest of my life. So I decided to transition away from that. But I was actually laid off from a job in between and had all this time. So I reached out to one of my friends at the company and I said, hey, if I can get a town on board, if I can get a team and a town say yes to Sportstown, will you go shoot it with me? And they said yes. So I said, okay, let's figure it out. So I had lived in Louisville, Kentucky as part of one of my many reporting stops. I left Green Bay after you guys left and then went to Louisville, covered the Cats, covered the Cards. I mean, talk about an unbelievable college basketball rivalry. I mean, you think about, like Cowboys and Eagles fans, like they hate each other. It's nothing like a college basketball rivalry. Like Louisville, Kentucky literally hate each other. So we shot the pilot in Lexington, Kentucky. We partnered with UK Basketball. They let us in. It's all we needed. We partnered with the Visitors Bureau out there, put an episode together, and it's been like 15 months from pre-production to now. We're going to release the first episode of Sportstown on March 6th. So I'm not sure when you're planning on releasing this, but you can go check out the trailer now at SportsTown Show on all social medias. But check out the YouTube SportsTown Show,
Yeah.
where the trailer and all of our content live. But it is truly the search to find the number one sports town in America. And, how do we grade that, Tyler? Like, that's an interesting question. I'm kind of curious for how you would grade your perfect sports town. But it is, the accumulation of not only the team, are they good? Do they win? But also, where do you eat? Where do you stay? What attractions exist? Curious for your thoughts.
And I will have all of the links in the show notes here. So make sure everybody listening, everybody watching goes to the Sportstown YouTube channel. You're on Instagram, X, everywhere. That is a phenomenal question, Dan, because I've thought about it. Like, how do you really gauge one sports town versus the other? Because you've got the fan bases, you've got the different levels of sports, you've got the social scene, the drinking scene, the just the people, right? The people in all of these cities are going to be different, and you're going to like or dislike them based off of where you're from. Uh, to me, I don't know. To me, it's anecdotal. It's okay. Which sports town, which 2 or 3 day visit just created the absolute best memories that you'll be talking about for the rest of your life. So I guess every list, every power ranking, and you know how much
We
I
love power rankings.
despise power rankings. By the way, the first mock draft is live at my Twitter account. I think I labeled it mock 13.0. Click it. It's definitely not going to send you to another Jim Croce song. That's not where it's going to send you. It's going to give you 1 through 32. That's kind of a running joke on there. I love just sending people to Jim Croce performances. But yeah, I think it's anecdotal because I was just talking to my dad about this. The best memories I have in my life to this day are all the sports trips I took with my dad. We'd go to, I grew up in Western New York as a young Packer fan, and starting in 6th grade, every couple years we went to Lambeau, and we still laugh our asses off about the people we met out there. I still remember it was a Green Bay Philadelphia Monday night game at Lambeau. Green Bay lost, but who cares? That's not what you remember. You remember like having your first beer with your dad and seeing all of these degenerates at a tailgate party sharing all of their crazy stories, and then seeing them on your flight out of Green Bay after the game, just feeling the after effects of it all. It's everything. It's making the sign to the game, and just sharing memories with the people that you love, your friends, your family, whatever those are. So I don't know how you kind of grade that within a sports town formula, but I tell you what, it's going to be fun as hell for Dan and his friends to go city to city to city. And it's going to be even more fun for all of us watching it because we've talked about it, Dan. Like you just said, we haven't seen each other in 3.5 years. What could bring me, you, Felder, all of our friends together? Like everybody that was at all of our weddings. Hell, bring about sports. We
Yeah.
could figure out a date 1 year from now and say, let's go to Lexington, Kentucky. Let's go on this bourbon trail. Let's see a horse race or let's see a basketball game. And we would make it happen. And I would love to do it. And I think a lot of guys and gals out there would love to kind of do those types of trips with friends. So this show, I told you the first time we talked about it, this is going to be huge. I mean, people are going to love Sportstown, and they're going to be on the edge of their seats waiting to see where you throw yourself next. I can't wait to have you out here in Western New York, man.
We can't wait. Yeah, we're excited. We had some preliminary discussions with Buffalo about coming out for a Bills game. Hopefully those will pick up. But you're totally right. I mean, this is a show about experience, right? This is not a show about final scores because who cares, right? At the end of the day, it's all about how and who did you spend your time with? And that's one of the big things about the show that I initially didn't consider. But now that we've shot an episode, we're in the process of gearing up for our second episode. I'm not going to tell you where, but we are gearing up for episode 2. But the people you meet and the connection that exists, not only because of the teams that they cheer for, but the connection between the viewer at home or on their computer or phone, whatever, and the people we speak to, because, you know, people always say it's never been worse, but like we had a civil war. So like it's been worse, but like, pretty divisive times, I would say. But I think sports are really the great connector. And once somebody watches this show, watches the people that we interact with, it's so obviously apparent that we're not that different, right? A lot of us value the same stuff. A lot of us cheer for the same stuff. And like to put the human aspect into a travel show about sports is really what it's all about. Because at the end of the day, you're rooting for laundry, as Jerry Seinfeld used to say, right? So at the end of the day, like you root for good people, you root for good stories, you root for connection, and that's really at the core of what SportsTown is really about. Now, it's also about drinking some great bourbon, getting a great steak or a great lobster, or taking in like the sights and sounds of some cool places to go, like a racetrack, like you said. We'll be doing that in our Kentucky episode. But at the core of it, it's about people, man. Like that's what we're missing right now. That's what we want to do. We want to travel around the country and show everybody from all corners that like we're not all that different. We all cheer for scores, 3-pointers, touchdowns, goals, whatever.
Yeah, you just nailed it. I think it's almost like all those Anthony Bourdain shows, right? It's about food, but it's not about food, right? It's about
People
sports.
have, yeah,
It's not
people
about sports.
have described the show as a Bourdain for sports. I'm not going to go there at all. We've got to make a couple episodes before before we do that. But it's a nice thing to hear. That's for sure.
So, okay, so you've got this idea, you're putting it into action. You get out there to Lexington. The trailer's out there. Everybody should watch the trailer, and they can watch the full episode here soon. Just what were your favorite parts about
Yeah.
traveling to this first sports town? What was their case as the number one sports town in America?
Well, they credentialed us, so that was big. They let us in the building, so as a show trying to film a first episode, that was important. I mean, honestly, the funniest thing that happened to me was I'm a huge horse racing fan. I grew up outside of Philly, would go to Philadelphia Park with my uncle, and he would take me all the time, and he just taught me how to bet on the ponies. So I have been going to the horse tracks forever. So for me, the Kentucky Derby is a big deal at my house. My wife, my two daughters, and I get dressed up every year. We have a big derby party in the backyard. All the neighbors come over. The potluck. I make, mint juleps. I make Kentucky mules, which is just a Moscow mule with bourbon. My bourbon collection is actually right next to me, right here in my office.
Right next to the dead bodies.
Maybe not the best spot for it while I'm working. Because sometimes we just feel like taking a pull. Um, but in 2022, I actually bet a substantial amount of money on a horse named Epicenter, who was the second betting favorite. Went off at 8-1. Now I am kind of a sicko when it comes to this, Tyler. Like I will watch what are called graded races, right? There's three grades. There's one, two, three grades in horse racing leading up to the Kentucky Derby, right? And in order to qualify for the Derby, they have a point system where you have to perform in a lot of these earlier races to earn points to gain standing within the Derby. Now, to do that, like you have to run a lot of races, like at least three races. So a lot of these horses run against each other. So I grinded the film. I was watching the all 22 of these horses. Came to my conclusion that Epicenter was the horse to beat. So threw down a substantial amount of money on Epicenter at my house party, my house derby party. Epicenter goes on to lose to the longest long shot in the history of the Derby. 80-1 Rich Strike ends up coming up from behind Epicenter, chasing the fucking horse down and wins. I'm losing my mind at my own party. My wife is like, "What is wrong with you?" And I was like, "Check our bank account. You'll see what's wrong with me." So I lost that bet. So fast forward, we're shooting SportsTown. We go to this great place called Ashford Stud. Now, Ashford Stud has locations in Australia, in I think Ireland, I wanted to speak, and Lexington. So Lexington is like the horse racing capital of the world because of many factors, which include the grounds. It's a limestone base. It's great for filtration. The amount of land available so the horses can grow and graze and mate, whatever. So this place has American Pharoah Triple Crown winner. This place has Justified Triple Crown winner. And I'm walking through the barn that they're walking us through, and I stop and I go, "Is that Epicenter?" And they're like, "Yeah, from the Derby." And I was like, "Oh, I know who the horse is." So I go up to the horse and like we're just rolling continuously because I don't like like stylistically, I don't like things to feel too. I want them to be candid. Like, we're shooting a travel show. I don't want everything to seem like we're on a set. Like, just take us there. Whatever happens, happens. We'll shoot it. And I walk up to this horse, and I'm like, kind of MFing the horse a little. He
Yeah,
cost
it's
me a ton of
amazing.
money. And the horse literally reaches out and just grabs my elbow like that, and it just gives me like a little tug on the elbow. And I was like, "What the?" So this horse bit me, like bit the shit out of me. And I had marks for like several days from Epicenter's teeth. So the horse just takes a chunk out of my elbow, and I just like I recoil, and I'm like, now I really don't like you. And the guy giving us the tour is like losing it. He is laughing. So I'm like worried he's gonna be like, I can't believe you disturbed our multi-million-dollar horse. Like you got to go. He is laughing his ass off. He can't believe that I had told him previously what was happening. So for this horse to just take a bite out of my elbow, he thought it was great, and I was furious. I was furious with this horse. So me and Epicenter just like butting heads continuously to this day. I hope it lives a long, healthy life, but I never want to see it on a racetrack ever again.
Thought you were going to advocate for this horse to be put down right here on the Go Long
No,
Pod.
no, we our social
Humanely,
our
not
social
like
guy
Vito.
Rudy does a great job of putting clips up. So he did put up a clip like that, and the first comment was like, "You should have called him Elmer." And I was like, "That's a great comment, but I'm not gonna stir the pot because we want their engagement from Ashford Stud." So, yeah,
I got to say that reel, it
really
had me in
fun.
stitches, Dan. Like, I'm not just telling you that. When you put that up on Instagram, I had tears in my eyes. It was incredible. Everybody check it out at SportsTown.
Yeah, it was really fun, man. I mean, and the whole
I
thing,
didn't know that he actually like bit
just a
your elbow.
gas.
Like I couldn't tell.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
like a
he got me.
legit
Oh, he
bite.
got me. Oh, he got me. Yeah, yeah. Yep. And they tell you, I know how often you've been on horses, but they always tell you like, don't stand directly in front of a horse because the horse's eyesight goes out, right? So you always stand to the side of a horse. Also, you never stand behind a horse for obvious reasons. You're going to die if it kicks you. So like you never stand directly in front of the horse. And at that point, I was directly in front of the horse. Maybe I scared the horse, but the horse decided to just like clamp onto my elbow. And I got a long memory like an elephant. I'm gonna remember.
I got to say too. I mean, just with obviously people listening, maybe they've heard of Dan Koob and they know the legend of, but you were like born for these reels and this show because your personality is unlike anybody. You had me cracking up many times over when we were out there in Wisconsin. So it's not just like insightful and informative. Like you will be entertained watching Sports Town. Like that's really what made me think of you hosting this show as like the perfect fit. You just gotta have so much fun being yourself, going to all these towns.
Well, and I'll tell you, one of the greatest episodes would be Buffalo. Like, I'd be curious to build a Buffalo episode with you on the show here because, obviously, if the opportunity presents, and I'll be honest, we've talked to the NFL, like we're good to use brands and logos and stuff like that. Like if the opportunity presents itself to jump through a flaming table, I'm doing it. I'll put on a GoPro, we'll film it, I will do it. Like I want the full bodied experience. And that's what the show is all about. Like I want you to watch Sportstown and I want you to say, well, I never would have considered going to Lexington, Kentucky, or Buffalo, New York, or Durham, North Carolina, or Green Bay, Wisconsin. And after watching it, saying, well, you just curated the perfect sports weekend. So now I kind of want to go. Like, let's go check it out. So the dream is to eventually, partner with like a Southwest or, like United or something like that, and like create some custom packages for viewers to say, okay, you saw the episode. Here's how you can go do it. Like, go to our partners and book that flight and take that trip and do that and this and the other. Like, that's down the line, in a perfect world. But, we want people to watch the show and feel like we have curated a great weekend for them. I feel like I've now experienced it. Now it's time for me
Oh,
to go do it myself.
I mean, we're doing wings at 911 Tavern in South Buffalo, obviously.
Okay.
Meeting up with my brother-in-law, and one of my good buddies tomorrow night, actually. It's all we've been thinking about all week are those wings in South Buffalo. They are the best. And they don't sponsor everything here. I just love their wings. And so I will shout it from the mountaintops.
Free
If
ads.
you've got to go to the bathroom, make sure you go before your 911 trip. But that's what makes it great, right? It can't be this pristine, shiny. It's got to be kind of, I won't say hole in the wall because it's a big space. It's got to have some grit. They've got some real grit there in South Buffalo. So we're going there for the wings.
Okay.
Obviously, by the time you're out here, the Sabres are going to be good. I know we've been saying it for, I don't know, 12, 13, 14 years, but
You were
they'll
saying
be
that when
good
we
by
were in
the,
Green Bay, I think.
yeah,
We were in
yeah.
Green Bay and you're like, nope, just give it another year. Eichel's coming. We're going to be great.
Well, I was thinking McDavid. I mean, the way that Tim Murray was working that thing, if a player did anything good, like literally, if a goalie had a good game, he would trade that goalie for picks. It was unabashed. I was all in for the tank. I mean, we've got Buffalo people who listen here. Like, I was pro tank, didn't care about the ramifications to the building. Like, no, Connor McDavid is that good. I went to some Erie Otter games. I'm like, this dude is on another level. And then some. And we see it today, obviously. But yeah, the ping pong balls and Gary Bettman in the NHL, they rigged it for Edmonton. Obviously, it was an inside job to get Edmonton McDavid. But yes, we'll go to a Sabre game. They're going to be good. And then the Bills do the full tailgate experience,
Yep.
get you in the most rambunctious section of the game. But also, I think there's people look at Buffalo as Bills and Sabres, and that's it. I think we get down to the southern tier, man. I think we go down to my neck of the woods to Allegheny, New York, and work in a St. Bonaventure basketball game,
Wow.
perhaps against your Temple Owls, and perhaps the Temple coaches. Maybe we throw some cookies at them, right? I think we have to kind of reenact the epic scene. I was at that game as a kid. Bonnie's Owls. John Chaney saying that somebody hit him with a cookie. I think it was exaggerated. I don't think it was a direct shot. I think there could have been a cookie on the court, but J.R. Bremer in the corner drilled it. We all stormed the court. The Riley Center rocks, man. When the Bonnies are good, even if they're not good, it's full. So we're working a Bonnie game into it as well.
So we took a bit of a break in the house from Temple basketball for a long time, but their new coach, Adam Fisher, was actually a high school teammate, I believe, of my brother-in-law. We're from the same place, Adam Fisher. He's like 3 years older than me. So
So
we're
he
back in.
could take a cookie to the jaw. Then
We're
he'll be
fully
game.
back. He might eat it. We're fully back though. Yeah, love Temple hoops. Love John Chaney. Goon Squad. I wish I still had my Goon Squad T-shirt from when Nehemiah Ingram took out Dwayne Clark from those disgusting St. Joe's basketball teams. I'm so anti St. Joe's, anti Villanova. They're not in Philadelphia. Get over it, everyone. Yeah, that's my own personal bias there. But no, so one of the charms of the show too, not to continue to bring it back to that, but like we don't want to just do NFL, NBA all the time. Some of the best places to go are like Sounders games. Like a great example of this is Nebraska volleyball, right? And I don't know how many people know this. Nebraska volleyball had 90,000 people go to an exhibition game last year. They filled Memorial Stadium, the football stadium, with 90,000 people for a volleyball game. Imagine that atmosphere. Like how sick is that? I want like that's where I want to take the show too. Like
Yeah.
obviously NFL is awesome. Like Lambeau, we lived in Green Bay for many years. I never went to a tailgate because I was covering all the games. I've never experienced a tailgate at Lambeau. Like I want to go to Lambeau. I want to do that. You meant like jumping through a table at the Bills games. Like that's awesome. But like those little places, like Seattle Sounders, like put me on the wall at a Seattle Sounders game. Like let's go nuts with our scarves and our chants, and like put me inside Memorial Stadium with 90,000 people to watch a volleyball game. Like those are experiences, man. Like that is good stuff. That stuff I really want to check out. In addition to like you know the the Death Valleys and the swamps. And I don't like Penn State, but I guess we can go to Happy Valley if we have to. But like, some of the more traditional spots too, like
Yeah.
I want to hit them all. I want to go forth and touch them all, as they say. Maybe
I
cut that
feel
part out. That felt weird. Cut that last part out. I don't want to touch them all. I just want to go see it.
well, that's all right. I feel like what you'll learn too is as you're kind of going city to city, market to market, when the teams are just truly intertwined with the community, and everybody always says they are, but I don't know, man. Like we've been covering the NFL for a while. You go to some of these games, and Tampa Bay, they've got some diehards. So I don't just mean to pick on Tampa Bay, but like if the Buccaneers lose a playoff game, you just go to the beach after. Like it's fine. It's I
Yeah.
mean, the Bills lost to the Chiefs again, and you could feel how depressed everybody was. You could feel it in Green Bay. And Green Bay won a Super Bowl in 2010, and all of those crushing playoff losses after that, it was desolate. It's you have both extremes. I mean, you win some of these playoff games, or you win on a Hail Mary in the regular. Like everybody kind of takes on that joy, and when they lose, everybody takes on that depression. And I feel like that is a true sports town when the mood of an entire community is based solely on the performance of the sports team. Like really, you're not just saying it. It's not just a coach for a team saying he's going to rally the community. Poor Anthony Lynn. I remember talking to him about trying to get fans in LA to care about his Chargers. I mean, they could barely fill up a soccer stadium. I don't know how many fans the Rams have. Do they have like 12 or 13 fans? I'm not quite sure. But if any way you can bring that to life on the show, I think is really gonna make it pop.
one of the things that stands out to me, and we were both at this game, I think, NFC Championship 2014 in Seattle, Packers Seahawks. The game that goes, the Packers were up, I think, what, 16 with 9 minutes left or something like that, and they just run the ball into the line three, six times. Seattle ends up winning the game in overtime. I mean, I thought the stadium was going to collapse, but nothing screams like this community only exists for this team. More so than when I talked to Larry McCarron, who at the time was my boss, but also the play-by-play, or excuse me, radio or color radio analyst for the Green Bay Packers at the time, still is. And he was like almost in tears. Like they were that close to going back. Second time in 4 years. Honestly, I thought they were probably the second best team to Seattle that year, if not for the Pats. So maybe they're the third best team. But a team that multifaceted offensively, they could run it, they could throw it. Defensively, they were just good enough. And I really felt like the community was like, this is our year, we're going back. And then to see that snatched away from them and the reaction from, people even associated with the team to immediately react in that sort of way. I mean, Brandon Bostic cried in the locker room. Do you remember, like, Brandon
Oh,
Bostic drops the onside kick. He is crying during his media availability.
how could you
Now,
not if you're Brandon Bostic? I mean,
obviously he's on the team.
you just
Like
know in
he's on the
that
team.
moment, this is
Yeah,
what everybody will remember when they hear my name for the rest
and
of
it's true.
time.
Yeah,
And
it's
his
true.
credit,
But
we've said it on here before. I mean, he stood there and answered our questions
he did.
until PR cut it short. And then the next day at locker room cleanup day, same thing. He would have stood there for an hour talking about the worst moment of his life until PR cut it short. So I thought it said a lot about Brandon. I know he screwed up, and I've
Yeah.
talked to Packer players since then who are still pissed at Brandon Bostic and completely
Wow.
put it on him. Oh yeah, there's
Wow.
one prominent starter because that game is replaying. It was the 10-year anniversary, and it was on TV. And Ella and Sonny were down in the basement, and show the kids young what sports heartbreak looks like for a team. And anyways, I was just texting a player, and he goes, "Man, I will never forgive Brandon Bostic for that."
Wow.
And I said, "But I was like, man, but look at all the other plays in that game and how passively Mike McCarthy was coaching, the chip shot field goals, the punts, as you
Right.
referenced, handing the ball to Eddie Lacy 3 times in a row when you've got an MVP in Aaron Rodgers, just not throwing to win. What about Morgan Burnett, the interception? You've got Julius Peppers telling him to go. We could spend an hour going
Right.
through all the
Right.
moments,
Right.
and this guy said no. Brandon Bostic. All he knew, he was told right before that, you block. He blocks that guy. Jordy Nelson recovers, but he felt he needed to be the hero in this player's mind. Uh, but yeah, that is a lasting image for us in the media. Is Bostic talking about it
Yeah.
for as long as he
But
need
again,
to?
just underscores like the damage done to a community.
Oh my God.
When something like that happens. I mean, you mentioned showing your kids heartbreak at a young age. I can't relate. I have two daughters. One born when the Eagles last went to the Super Bowl, and the Phillies went to the World Series again, South Jersey slash Philly. And then here we are, Super Bowl champions yet again, the Philadelphia Eagles 2 years later. Fly Eagles fly, EAGLES, or if you're the mayor, EGLGS. She can't spell Eagles. Um,
Boy,
just
she's on a roll,
properly
man.
play.
What an idiot she is. I mean, really, she is an idiot. She is.
I don't want to get political here, Tyler.
I
But
don't know what party. Whatever. She couldn't spell Eagles, and then what did
yeah,
she say? This is
like nothing good can be done or something like that. Like
nothing good
she missed.
happens when you come together as a team.
Yeah. There, misspoke. I mean, I was
Yeah,
actually
there's the leader of the
walking.
city, Dan. You're in good hands
Yeah,
down there.
yeah. Well, we moved out, so um,
I'm
yeah.
lumping you
I
all
mean,
together.
that's okay. You should. Yeah, not a great look for her. But for the Birds, a really interesting and like tumultuous season that turns into the greatest Eagles team in the franchise history. I mean, a team that goes back to 1934, if I'm not mistaken. Very easily the best team in franchise history. 5 months ago,
Yes.
we were talking about whether or not Sirianni had the stones to basically be a CEO type coach after Jeffrey Lurie and Harry Roseman, of course, like basically put him in a box, taking away his ability to hire an offensive defensive coordinator after internal
Hmm.
hires, after the last Super Bowl run. proved that he didn't have the eye for the talent there, proved that the offense had not evolved. And his bosses basically said, well, we're going to do it or you're going to be fired. He says, okay. And then he turns it around and wins a Super Bowl. Now he's got like the third highest win percentage in the history of the National Football League. So it's just like the weirdest season to be. I don't cover the Eagles anymore. I covered them for 3 years. I don't anymore, but obviously know a lot of people in that building, and still a lot of the players. Just like a very weird season that ended in the perfect way. Like, there's no better way to end your season with the Super Bowl. But now Nick Sirianni goes from coaching for his job to potentially being one of the highest paid coaches in the National Football League in the span of 5 months.
Yeah.
Like, it's just crazy.
I want to get into the Eagles with you too, Dan. I should
Sure.
mention too, like if
Oh,
anybody out
I'm sorry.
there,
One more Rodgers note before we move off Green Bay.
oh yeah,
So you and I know people over there, right? I was talking to somebody over there recently, about something unrelated. And I said to them, what's it like now that 12's gone? Just give me an idea. And they did not hesitate for a single second. They said, how do you think it is now that he's gone? And that was not like them throwing the question back at me. That was them being like, I know you know the answer.
right.
So here's like my quick response. Like, how do you think it's been with him out of the building? So uh been proven. I mean, that's bore out in the last couple of years, clearly.
That's what cracks me up when I hear from somebody who talks to somebody in an executive position who is still pissed off at yours truly for writing about said quarterback at Bleacher Report and how ugly it was. Because I'm like, dude, you guys knew it was 100 times worse than anything I reported
Yeah.
through players and coaches and people in the building. Yeah, it was miserable. He just did whatever he wanted to. So I'm sure it's very refreshing there. I was gonna say too, like when it comes to passion for a team, on the individual level, that level, that's why you have to get into media because honestly, I grew up a Packer fan, but I'm a fan of nothing now. It's kind of like the curse of the objective sports writer, where I mean, I kind of get jealous when people love a team and are on that emotional, euphoric high because I just don't know what that feels like. I completely lost it like
Yeah.
15, 16, 17 years ago. So I don't know. If you don't want to have the lows, like if you don't want to be down to the dumps after these playoff games, just get into the media and be a fan of nothing, I
You
suppose.
can find like a healthy medium. Like, okay, so I've been out of media technically for what, 3 years, but I spent 10 years in. I covered four NFL teams. I covered the Packers, Eagles, Bengals, and Giants. Very, very briefly, Giants for a summer. I've like reached a great like objectivity, but still a fan. Like I feel the lows, I definitely feel the highs, but I'm able to watch a game and say, okay, well they lost because of X, Y, Z. Clearly, I'm not gonna be mad about it, but like that's
Yeah.
that's what happened. Like praise them when they need praising, tear them down when they deserve to be torn down. Like I think there's a happy medium there. Now, obviously, if you're a scribe, which I'm not, like you have to present that objectivity. I totally get that, but I think you could sneak in some fan. The birds are hot right now, and they're gonna be good next year too. So come on in,
Oh,
come under my wing, come under my
this
wing.
team is fun as hell. It was great being around them at the Super Bowl because it's what football should be. You've got gnarly, nasty mother effers who
Yeah,
just want to tear your heart up. And you've got a GM in Howie Roseman who drafts that kind of player, signs that kind of player, for better or worse, right? I mean, it could come at the risk of chemistry and locker room culture. And they've had some issues. Last season, the team completely fell apart and it got ugly and people got fired and you needed to start over defensively, but infuse a roster with talent. Jalen Carter, right? Number one overall talent, falls to you at number 9. He is one of the 5, maybe one of the 3 most disruptive interior players in football already. CJ
yeah.
Gardner Johnson. There are teams that won't touch this guy, with the 10-foot pole. They'll stay away from him when he's voted in a landslide the most annoying player in football at the Athletic.
And he
How
is, he
he
is.
brings him in twice.
Yeah, yeah.
And what do you have? You have a team, a defense that makes Patrick Mahomes look like, I don't know, pick your Chiefs quarterback pass. Tyler Thigpen, Tyler Palko. Who else was in that bunch?
But you
Brody
know what? Like,
Croyle.
yeah, yeah. But like those are tone setters, right? And I think that style of play, and just get into like the Philadelphia psychology a little bit, like not just because they won the Super Bowl, even if they had lost. this would have been the highest regarded, the favorite team in franchise history because of the way they play. They're just bigger than you. Offensively, they just pound you into the dirt. They aren't interested in throwing the ball around for 300 yards. Philly loves to fashion itself as little brother blue collar city. Like the psychology of a Philadelphia resident is
Hmm.
no one thinks we're New York. Nobody thinks we're Washington. We're the place you stop on Amtrak to grab lunch and then you leave. Like nobody likes us. We don't care. We're blue collar, yada, yada, yada. Like all this stuff that we have repeated ourselves for generations, generations. My family has always been here since they came over. They've always been in Philly. Like that is what people think in Philadelphia about themselves. The fact that they just line them up
Yeah.
and just physically punish people, this was by far the favorite Philadelphia, the favorite iteration of the Philadelphia Eagles in the history of the franchise. Win or lose. Now the fact that they won, obviously, like it's cemented, like it's gospel now. Now we're having conversations on whether or not Sirianni, Hurts are the greatest Eagles of all time already, which I think is not really that debatable, to be quite honest, because if you've tracked the Eagles over the course of their history, they have not been a very successful franchise until Jeffrey Lurie bought the team in 1998 or 1997, right? So it's the golden era of Eagles football. But the way this team played and defensively, Vic Fangio, who can't be talked about without mentioning that he's a huge Phillies fan, which is like a joke between me and a lot of my friends here, is that like every article about Fangio has to also mention that he's a guy in his late 60s who's white and loves baseball. Like we get it. That's the demographic. We understand. But like the way they play, like pound your dick in the dirt on offense and on defense, they're going to do it right back to you too. Like that style just resonates in this city, and this team will go down in Eagles lore as the best ever.
The way you articulated it too with that inferiority complex, I never really thought of it like that because out here, like in Western New York, growing up in the sticks in the Southern tier, I just would lump New York City, Philadelphia, DC, kind of all in the same metropolitan bucket. But that's kind of really how Philadelphians see themselves. No wonder they're going to boo Santa Claus and throw snowballs. I mean, it was nuts at the Superdome, Dan. We were there at the Super Bowl. And
How
it's
dare
great. Like
you?
the
How dare you
auxiliary.
bring that up? Find a new slant, Brian Colangelo. Find a new slant.
I'm just saying. I know. But like sitting in the auxiliary press seat, and so there's like overflow from the press box. They create like this extra press box to accommodate all the media. But it's better. I remember Bob McGinn would request the auxiliary seat because you're in the bowl. Like you have a better sense for the atmosphere. You can like see everything, hear everything. But I got back from the Super Bowl, and Gina's like, "Did they really boo Taylor Swift when she was on the video board?" I'm like, yeah, but it wasn't just her. I mean, literally anything Chiefs. Like John Hamm introduced the Chiefs to come out of the tunnel, and it was just vehement, like bloodthirsty boos. They would show random middle-aged women Chiefs fans on the jumbotron boos. It was thundering, and usually the Super Bowl atmosphere is corporate and bland, insipid.
Yeah.
Like you don't really know who's cheering for who. And I'll never forget Santa Clara, Denver, Carolina. The Coldplay played at halftime. It was pathetic. Like nobody gave a shit about anything. Nobody really cheered or booed for anything. That place was full of Eagle fans who were
Yeah.
pissed off and were out for blood. And yeah, they booed Taylor Swift. And she had to react. It was like that loud, which is
She
crazy for
she's a
a quote
traitor.
unquote neutral site.
She's a traitor. Taylor Swift is a traitor. I don't dislike the music. I don't really listen to it, but like she's from Reading, Pennsylvania, which is like 30 miles outside of Philadelphia.
Wow.
I went to college. One of my college roommates went to like her high school. She's my age. She's from Pennsylvania. She is a documented Eagles fan, and she flipped sides for what? Marketing love. I'm sure they're in love. I'm sure it's great. She flipped sides for
Surely.
that. She deserves it. And she has
Yeah.
to expect it. Like, come on. Like, you have to expect it. Like,
Oh,
you're wearing Chiefs.
100%.
And when you juxtapose that with Kylie Kelsey saying in a documentary she can't bring herself to even wear Travis Kelsey's name on her shirt, like, well, what do you want? Like, what one wife is saying she refuses to wear anything than Midnight Green or Kelly Green, and then Taylor Swift is out here switching sides left and right. So
I usually don't give a shit about like off the field, what players are dating, who. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, it's been like celebrity after celebrity. Wasn't he like with a witch at one point from Instagram, Blue of Earth or something? But it does
I
get kind of interesting with Taylor Swift and Travis Kelsey because like Travis Kelsey is washed. I mean, the Chiefs. I don't care what they say. Why would they want him back? They probably really would like him to fade off into the. He doesn't want to hit anybody. He's slowing down. And so as his star, maybe his star will never fade. Maybe he's such a big podcaster, he's larger than life. He'll be in the Hall of Fame. So maybe he'll always be in the limelight. But if it does fade, does Taylor want to move on to somebody else? Because her star's not going to fade at all. I don't know. I don't know how these celebrity
I
relationships work. You think it's
see
true
I
love?
Yeah, sure. I
Okay.
believe in true love. Sure, that's fine. I mean,
I
if
mean,
anything,
Tucker
you're
Craft.
probably
What if
right.
Tucker Craft is available and you're Taylor Swift and you love tight ends,
Too much
right?
cheese. She's like, she weighs like 110 pounds. She can't be eating all that cheese. Come on. Well, I mean, I would say if anything, they probably wouldn't leave because he's got like a $17 million cap hold, right? So the Chiefs are probably like, hey, we could use that $17 million. Like, see ya. Thanks
Yeah.
for everything. No, I'm pro Kelsey's. Believe me. Like, look, you can't open your eyes in Philadelphia without seeing Jason Kelsey. So like, I'm still pro Kelsey. I don't want to get
Okay.
that twisted.
Okay.
But
You're
you know,
anti Kelsey. Got it.
yeah, if that's your takeaway, that's fine.
So you were I gotta ask you though, you were down at the parade, right? I mean, you've got
Of
some
course,
videos up on
of course.
SportsTown, which are everything you'd expect. Dan in the
Can,
wild
can,
talking to
can
Eagle
we
fans.
Yeah, just real quick, like a real quick disclaimer about Philadelphia sports parade. They're not like destructive. Like this whole everything that happens everywhere. Like, oh, can't believe it happened in Philadelphia after our championship. Like it's so tame.
Yeah, yeah.
But people like you in the media, Tyler, like to pick up on one little thing, and now it's everywhere.
Well, you're talking about Bills fans all smashing through tables. I mean, it's usually just a couple,
But like, who
inebriated
is that? But who is that harming? That's not harming
18 year
anybody.
olds. But it's not all Bills fans. Not all Bills fans are just getting drunk and, you know, threatening paralysis
Well, I know
at
we need
10
no
a.m.
ads here. I know there are no ads on the show, but who's the guy on Instagram from Buffalo who tailgates all the time who does like the fire recipes? Like Cuso. Oh boy. Okay. We'll cut this. We'll cut this.
Yeah,
But his
I don't know.
stuff looks amazing.
When
So
it
maybe I'll
comes to
reach out
food
to
in
him.
Buffalo, it's just feed me underscore Buffalo. It's just my wife's
It
account,
sure
obviously. That's
is.
all I
Yeah.
follow. Yeah.
Shout out to your beautiful wife Gina. And Feed Me Buffalo. An account that my wife Joanna and I are constantly on. Because she doesn't cook and I don't cook well. So we just kind of look at it and we're like, yeah, that looks like it'd be really good. That's
I'm a
it.
very lucky man. Yes.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, it was a
Yeah.
good
So the
time.
parade.
Good time with the Eagle folk.
Parade's always a good time. There's always a lot of Dallas sucks that goes on anytime you get Philadelphians together. So a lot of content based
Mhm.
upon how nobody wants to go to Dallas. Yeah, it was great. Actually, we had just missed Howie Roseman getting beamed in the head with a beer. Because when his bus came by, he and Big Dom were kneeled over together on a bunch of chairs. So like, they were like bending over, I guess, to try to fix his face. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder what's going on there. And then it became to find out that he had gotten beamed in the face. Yeah, I
That
mean,
was badass.
if you love shotgunning beers, like the parade in Philadelphia is the place for you. Like everyone, like toddlers, shotgunning beers, telling people to F off.
Hmm.
Like that's just how we raise them here. So
That's
uh,
how it should be.
poles climbed, all poles were climbed, right? Ungreased poles, kind of like an untanned calf, very, very unattractive. There's ungreased poles. People climbing up every which way. People climbing on trucks, on roofs of like 18 wheelers. Any opportunity to get a view, they did it. But a great amount of fun. Obviously, vibes are at an all-time high in the city, and the Phillies, the Phillies are clearly number two in Philadelphia. It's Eagles, Phillies. The Sixers are such a fucking joke that nobody cares about them anymore. And
Yeah.
then, they're kind of there with the Flyers. So to transition from Eagles Super Bowl second in 7 years to, a Phillies team that should push for a fourth straight playoff berth. Vibes are at an all-time high.
I can't wait to see what you have cooking down there in Philly. I'll just assume that they're going to be on the circuit for Mr. Sports Town himself, Dan Koob. So
Well,
they're
they make a lot of sense financially and logistically. So
yes,
we may see them pop up, but again, we'd love to go to Green Bay, we'd love to go to Buffalo, we'd love to go to Nebraska, we'd love to go to Tucson. Like I'll pull the curtain back a little bit. I'll tell you a quick story before it sounds like we're wrapping. Um, the first episode we actually tried to go to the waste management tournament in Scottsdale, Arizona last year. They wouldn't credential me because I was no longer an active member of media. Otherwise, we were ready to go. And what ended up happening there were the people got so drunk, like people in mass got so drunk that it almost ruined the tournament. Like the PJ had to step in and say, you can no longer sell this much alcohol here because it was so rowdy. So
Oh my
we
God.
missed an opportunity to capture all of that on camera. But maybe we'll go to a tamer version of that next year.
Well, we've got listeners, viewers, not only all over the country, all over the world. So if you're listening, please like comment, reach out to Dan on the social channels at SportsTown Show. I believe
Yeah,
across what
across everything. Yeah,
X,
tell us why we should come to
Instagram.
your town. Yep, Instagram and YouTube
Exactly.
are our bread and butter for sure. But we are on TikTok, we are on X, but Instagram and YouTube for sure. Yeah, tell us why we should come to your town. Like we're just four guys from Philly looking to explore and travel and figure out this question of who is the best sports town in the world. We're starting with America, but if you're in Toronto or Montreal, you want us to come to a game, let's go. Like we'll expand, we'll go international. So yeah, drop us a line, let us know.
I love it. Please do slide into Dan's DMs. You won't be the first. A lot of people
Crash,
sliding in there. Crash.
crash into
Right.
those DMs. Yeah,
Cannonball into Dan's
yeah.
DMs and let him know you've got to come to.
I think that's how I got my girlfriend in Green Bay. I think I did the same thing. I
Did
think
you?
it started. I think it started with a DM crash. Ended with a crash too, but it started with a DM.
Hey, we're a Tinder household. No shame. You got to do it. Why not?
I am done with Tyler Dunn. We didn't get to any Green Bay stories. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Episode
Well,
episode
you mentioned the
episode.
untanned calf. I mean that is a hook into the all time Green Bay stories where it's still. How can we tease this without spending an hour on it? We
When you're
basically
when
ran
you're
into somebody who was annoying as hell, and we just had some fun, I suppose.
we
And
were sitting outside with a woman who was a chain smoker. It was very annoying, and
yeah,
we crafted this
we
uh,
couldn't we couldn't shake her.
scenario into which we had owned a cold yoga studio. It was like a meat locker in there, 32 degrees for all of our classes.
Right,
And everybody
right.
wants to do hot yoga, but can I tell you something? Nothing about hot yoga is going to be better than cold yoga. All right, you want to get
We
in
we can
there,
we convinced her that cold yoga was a thing.
yeah, and then
Negative
I,
temps,
yeah, negative.
the brink of death, and she
It's like
believed everything.
a meat locker in there. But that did turn into us becoming spin and cold yoga instructors at
Hmm.
many bars after that, which we were speaking to members of the opposite sex. So good times.
Well, at the end of the day, I remember telling Packer players this too. Like there weren't many options for us media folk because most were just dating a Packer player or having relations with the player. And it, so we just, we had to have fun with it, right? We just had to enjoy our time out there best we could, right?
I mean,
Survive in advance.
one of my finest moments was like taking a piss next to Charles Woodson one time at his bar. Like that. That's
That
like
must have been
on
after
the
I left.
no, no, you were there.
Really? I don't remember
I
that
did
one.
like there was just so few things to do that
Yeah.
at the time I hadn't been there in some time, but at the time it was like, oh, I'm drinking your wine and urinating next to you, like top five night, pretty awesome. And then his brother, of course, ran cover two into the ground because I don't think I was ever charged for a Bud Light at cover two the entire time I went there.
I love
imagine,
I
imagine.
loved vintage. Vintage was the
Oh,
spot.
I know. Imagine buying a bar for your brother, giving it to him for him to operate, and he never charges anyone to drink. Shout out to Charles Woodson, or to
We needed John
Jonathan
Taffer
Woodson,
to come in.
to
Taffer
Jonathan
needed to show
Woodson,
up.
one of my dudes, just absolute dude, Hall of Fame, uh, Wood over there at cover two, which I'm sure has been like nine different things.
I mean, wouldn't that be hilarious though if John Taffer just showed up at Charles Woodson's bar and just gave him hell? Like, gave a Pro Football Hall of Famer and his brother like shit for how they're running a business.
Well, what's he gonna say at Vintage? Is Vintage still there?
I'm talking about cover
Oh,
two.
cover two. Do they serve
Yeah,
food there?
I don't know.
I can't
That
imagine.
really wasn't around. I left before
I
you.
I wouldn't eat at cover two. Let's just put
Okay.
it that way.
Fair enough. What we have to do though is we've got to get Jermichael Finley on your next episode,
Oh
and
man,
maybe he'll have some Green Bay stories, and we'll leave it there because that's a good
two.
spot to end. Dan
That's
Koob,
pace and space for that episode. Spurs 14, pace and space. Give Jermichael the ball. We stand in the corner and just let him cook James Harden style for 90 minutes.
that's it. That's it, man. I
All right.
can't wait for everything Sports Town. It's going to be epic. Check it out. Follow Dan. Follow at SportsTown Show. This was a hell of a lot of fun, Dan. Great to actually see you. We'll be talking on the phone, I'm sure, and have some fun with those kiddos and the whole fam out there. We got to get our crews together soon.
Definitely. Thanks, man. Really appreciate it. Love seeing you. Say hello to everybody. Give your best to Gina, and we'll figure out. We'll triangulate. We'll meet in like somewhere in upstate Pennsylvania in a couple of years. I'm sure.
Yeah, let's pull out a map and let's just connect some dots and figure it out. Where there's
Love
a
it.
will, there's a way. All
Love
right.
it. Thanks, man.
Thanks so much, Dan, and thank you everybody for watching, for listening. We'll catch you next time.